Okay, so Maxime, how many years has it now been since you turned fully plant-based and vegan?
It's gonna be 9 years in on June 20th on my birthday. So like a few weeks. It's gonna be 9 years.
Oh wow, on your birthday. Was there a specific moment that happened for you on that birthday? What happened 9 years ago that triggered this change for you? And what has been your
Uh
journey?
yeah, well, it was kind of I didn't plan it for it to be on my birthday. Is I used to be like a bodybuilder and powerlifter. So I was like 240 pounds. I was like thick and strong, but I was eating so much meat. I was eating a dozen eggs for breakfast, like three chicken breasts every 2 hours, like the typical bro meal plan that you eat when you want to get big. And then I got recruited for high fashion modeling. And they're like, hey, like you're too chunky to like do any photo shoot or anything. Like you need to lose weight. So I came home, went on Google. I'm like, I'll just give this a shot. What's a diet that's going to give me the skinniest? And they're like, vegans. Vegans are skinny and weak. I was like, I don't care if I'm weak. I just need to be skinny. So I went vegan, and it kind of happened around my birthday, and that's kind of when it happened for at that time. But that's what launched me into veganism at first, was just to get skinny so I could work in the modeling world.
Oh wow. And did you literally do it overnight?
Yeah, yeah, man. I went from, like I said, dozen eggs for breakfast, three chicken breasts. I was doing that for 4 years straight. And then the next day, my breakfast was a bowl of dates, blueberries, and bananas. That was 9 years ago.
Wow. I mean, 9 years ago, being plant-based was almost like it was very rare, right? Especially in the fitness world. And I think there was a big
Yeah,
coming up in the fitness world at the same sort of time. For me, the only message I heard was like, you got to eat a kilo of meat a day. Every
yeah.
meal's got to be steak and eggs or something along those lines. So to go from being a full-on 240-pound bodybuilder and powerlifter to like turning vegan overnight, that's quite the transition. Well, not even a transition,
Yeah.
right?
There's no transition. It was immediate. I've always been super intense. Like when I want something, I just do it. There's no I catch up with the adaptation that comes with it. And so like I didn't know how to eat vegan. I just knew I couldn't eat eggs and chicken and fish and steak. I just knew I couldn't do that, but I didn't know how to do it properly. It took me a really long time to figure that out. But yeah, it was rough. Like I at the gym, I was the big guy that was like deadlifting like a ton of weight. I could deadlift my car. Like I was the big strong guy, and I come to the gym like I'm vegan now. It's like, what are you talking about? Like you're gonna eat this little plastic like block of plastic called tofu? I was like, yeah, I'm gonna give this a shot for a while. And it was definitely a rough transition in terms of like the community. But for me, it was instant. I was like, bam, I'm locked in. I'm gonna try this modeling thing. I need to lose a bunch of weight, and this is the way that I'm gonna do it.
Yeah. And how did you find that then? How did you find the community connection, but also the transition? Like what was the journey of education for you?
Yeah, well, obviously I had to eat every day. And so by the time I had time to kind of do research, I would just eat whatever was not chicken, steak, and eggs and fish. So I would just eat whatever was around my house. I would read the labels. And I started watching Forks Over Knife was the first one I watched. That kind of really locked it in for me from like the health aspect, but also like, oh, this is like a way of life that people do. And they already showed like Rep scene in it, which, was fit. He was a firefighter. I was like, oh, it's possible to kind of work out, but there was no icons. There was like, you can be jacked and muscular and be vegan. So I just relied on those documentary as like a source of inspiration. And I started doing more research online because there wasn't a lot of popular. It wasn't popular on Instagram or anything. So I would just look at recipes and I would try to make the same thing at home. But it was a rough transition because I wasn't focusing on protein. I did the opposite. I was trying to get skinny for modeling. So I just ran, I stopped lifting, and I just ate plant-based without an emphasis on protein. And I lost 80 pounds in my first year. And it was rough. It was rough on the gut to go that fast of a fiber increase in one
Mm.
go. Because when you eat the bro split diet, like your fiber is broccoli. Like that's all you get, right? Broccoli with hot sauce. And so there's a drastic increase in fiber. Gut was a rough transition. It took me a good 6 months to start feeling normal again. But the biggest thing is after 2 months, my nose started clearing up and tension in my forehead. And so I didn't know my nose was blocked. I didn't know I had tension in my forehead, but that's how I was living my whole life. And to me, it was a normal sensation. And when it got removed, it was like, oh my God, I can breathe properly. I can think more clearly, which I didn't even know was a limitation because that
Mm.
was a part of my norm every day. And so once that lifted, I was like, well, there's something to this thing. And then, yeah, obviously dove more into the research documentaries. And one of the main reasons why I stayed.
Well, what about when you think about your nose clearing up and your forehead tension? How much of it was related to being lighter, or versus the foods? Had you been lighter before, or because you said you
Oh,
were
yeah.
240 pounds and like sort of you're probably like in that sort
Yeah.
of heavy bulking period, right? So
Definitely.
when you're in that phase, everything feels horrible. It's like, how much was it? Was it because you were lighter, and how much of it was it because of vegan? And had you had experience of of doing it the other way as well?
Yeah. Well, I grew up skinny fat. So like I grew up
Right.
at Twig. I was like 6'4", 150 pounds, which is what, like 70 kgs, 6'4". Like
Yeah.
I wasn't really big. So it took me a long time to get to that level. But at that point in my journey of veganism, I'd probably only lost like 5 pounds. I didn't lose a lot of weight when that started happening. That was
Okay.
when I cut out dairy. When I cut out dairy, that
Yeah.
was the big one that cleared up everything.
Yeah. That's a pretty common one, isn't it? I found a lot of people don't realize how they don't do well with dairy
Yeah.
until they
Yeah.
cut
A
it
lot of
out.
people are lactose intolerant, but this it's the norm to eat it. So they kind of deal with the consequences of eating, like the stomach pain, the gas. So like that's a part of it. I think it shouldn't. Your body shouldn't react that way if it was actually good for you.
Yeah. Okay, so you're a couple months in, you're feeling a lot better. Um, how did you continue with what was the continuation of that transition and the journey and the education?
Yeah. So it took me, I just kept focusing on whole food plant based. And just to be honest, like there's no options. Like Beyond
Yeah.
Meats, veggie burgers, like vegan desserts. Like my vegan dessert when I transitioned was those tofu with the banana flavor. And I think there was one with like strawberry, and that's what you would eat for dessert. Like that was it. There was no, I didn't even know Oreos were vegan until 2 years in. But for the first 2 years, I was just focusing on really, really high carb, low fat. I don't know if you're familiar with like 80-10-10, 80% carbs. I think is it Dr. McDougall? I think it's Dr. McDougall or Esselstyn. One of them was like basically 80-10-10 is 80% carbohydrates, 10% fat, 10% carb. So really low in dose, really high in carbohydrate. And then the book, The Starch Diet, came out, which was very popular. So just loading yourself up on the starch, which is again, just a bunch of carbohydrate, which there's nothing wrong with, but just very low emphasis on the protein aspect of things. And then I tried raw vegan for a while. I tried raw till 4, which you eat raw until 4 p.m. Then you have one cooked meal a day. Like there's it. I
Till
tried so
four.
many things. Yeah, it was very. And there's a if people have been vegan for a long time, Durian Ryder and Frilly the Banana Girl. Does that ring a bell? They're like
No.
really popular on YouTube in like the raw vegan space. Like they had a thing called Banana Island, where you just eat 30 bananas a day for like 30 days. And the whole point was like mono meal. So it's easier for your stomach to digest. It's always digesting the same thing. So it can spend more energy healing the rest of the body. There's some crazy shit out there back in the day, but those were really popular on YouTube. And for the first 3 to 4 years, I managed to lose 80 pounds. I managed to work internationally as a model, which was awesome. But my body composition was terrible because I was just eating a bunch of carbs, like no emphasis on protein. And I was just trying to stay skinny. And then when I got out of the modeling world, I was like, well, I want to put on some muscle again. I want to get bigger. And I just couldn't crack the code because like, I'm eating high carb, low protein, low fat, like everyone was mentioning. And it took me a long time to realize like, oh, when I was a bodybuilder, I was eating a pound of protein, a gram of protein per pound of body weight, which was like 240 grams per day. But then when I went vegan, I was eating 50 grams per day. And I was like, well, I don't want to go back to 240 because 240 grams of protein per day, like that's a lot of protein for someone to consume. And so I was like, there has to be a middle ground. And then I fell into flexible dieting. And then I fell into like doing into the research, and there was more studies coming out for like that 1.2 gram to 2 gram per kg of body weight range. I tried that, and then body composition improved instantly, right? Just bringing up my protein to that level, managing my calories, going back to strength training. That's what made a difference. And I was probably 5 years ago that I fell back into that, because before that it was all high carb.
Well, so 4 years of sort of just like trying all these weird things.
Yeah, of me trying to figure out like how do I get lean as a vegan while living this lifestyle, because everyone was like super lean and athletic. I was like, what am I doing wrong? Like I'm doing the same thing these guys are doing.
Yeah.
Right. And then big part was like genetics. Those people are like naturally leaner. I was skinny fat genetically. And so I retained more body fat around my stomach. And so I had to put a bigger emphasis on protein to be able to get that body I wanted.
Wow. So you've only really sort of been in the fitness space for the last sort of 4 or 5 years. Is that correct? Or even
I've been
potentially
in the
less?
fitness. Oh no, in the vegan fitness space
Yeah.
or like overall fitness space.
No. So you had the vegan. You said you finally cracked it 4 years ago. Were you still
Yeah.
modeling? Talk us through that journey of.
Yeah. So modeling lasted only like 3 years after I went vegan. It was just not an industry I wanted to be in. It's very unhealthy and toxic and druggy. And yeah, it's just not a world I wanted to be a part of. And I just wanted to start my own thing. And so, yeah, it was 5 years ago that I got into like proper vegan fitness to do it properly, to improve body composition and actually be fit. But I've been in the fitness space for over 10 years for sure. And I've been training for over 17 years now. Yeah.
Okay. It's interesting that even when you went vegan, coming from the powerlifting background and the bodybuilding background, you still sort of like fell for all the vegan, like all the like sort of weird stuff out there, and kind
Yeah.
of like all the myths that are around a lot of the vegan. You think of, I think there's still it's much better now, right? But there's still an element of like you think of a vegan person, you think of a skinny guy, you think of a weak person, and then some of the diets you described, they're all very like sort of wishy-washy, woo-woo, raw till
Mhm.
4 or
Yeah.
30 bananas a day. Trying to
Yeah.
navigate around that can be a bit of a minefield.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, back in the day, that's the only information there was, right? Like now you have like plant-based athlete, like the book, like by Robert, you have no meat athlete. You got so, like us, you got so many resources for people to educate on how to do this properly versus back in the day, the only thing that was promoted from a plant-based aspect, which there's nothing wrong with, was just the health component, right? Health, environment, and animals. There was never the performance fitness aspect that came along with it. So
Mm.
the only information was available is how to be healthy, which don't get me wrong, if you're eating high protein, medium carbs, high carb, low fat, low protein, like you're still going to be healthy and live a long life. You just won't have the body that you want. But that wasn't a thing that people cared for back in the day because it was still like on the hippie side
Yeah,
of
yeah,
things, the veganism. Yeah.
yeah. That's fair. And where have you been on that spectrum with regards to like environment, ethics, um, and that aspect of
Yeah.
veganism? Has that been a strong component of keeping you vegan, or has yours been
Personally,
more from
no.
a
For me, health. For me, it's always been health, right? Like share with you, I lost multiple people to cancer, my grandfather being the first one. Health was always the number one reason why I stayed vegan. And then animal cruelty was the second one, and then environment was the third. Like once you start, you come in with one and eventually kind of becomes about all of them. But for me, the number one's always been about health.
and why has that been close? Why has that been a close part for you?
Because I lost a lot of people in my family to cancer and like heart disease, and so many family members are sick when their nutrition is shit, right? And that's the thing that would have made a difference. If you look at all the studies, like if they would have changed the nutrition, a lot of them wouldn't have passed away or would have been a lot healthier or lived a lot longer.
Yeah, fair. Um, when it comes to the transition element of going from say eating a kilo meat a day to turning vegan, if you were to go back in time, how would you have done this properly? And what would you advise
Um,
people listening who may want to not necessarily go fully vegan, but may want to reduce their intake? What sort of practical strategies would be worth doing here?
yeah, well, definitely making sure that you like 1.2 gram to 2 gram per kg body weight is a great metric to fall into for your protein requirements. And so if you are to transition, making sure you hit at least within that with plant-based sources. There's nothing wrong with soy. Soy is extremely healthy for you, strengthens your bone, balances your hormones, actually really beneficial for you. Just make sure it's organic and non-GMO. You can use some like edamame, soy, tofu, natto, like lentils, beans, a little bit of seitan here and there to hit those protein metrics. That's the, if I were to go back, I would just fully cut out the meat in one shot, transition to those, hit my amount of protein within the range that I just gave, and make sure I continue eating the rest. Because I was already eating grains and vegetables. They just lacked variety before. Now we just include more variety. So instead of a cup of rice every day, I potentially do like some quinoa, some black rice, some forbidden rice, some brown rice, and kind of play around with that. But that's how I would do it. I would just, for me, because I'm super intense, I would just like one shot, hit the protein with plant-based, cut out the meat. Because if you keep something that you like or your taste buds are used to it, it's kind of like an alcoholic just trying to, be like, I'll wean off alcohol, but I'll go from like 10 drinks to like 9 and to like 8 to
Mm,
like 7. Like just cut it off. Because if you keep tasting it, you're going to want more of it.
yeah. And with that though, I think you're a very unique personality in that, some people can do that. Others necessarily won't want to do, you tell them that it's just not realistic.
Yeah. I have a second approach.
Go for it.
Yeah. Second approach, right? Just more sustainable, easier transition, is because the hard part about eating vegan is knowing what to eat and what ingredients to use to, like, substitute eggs, for example, when you're making a dish, right? And so what I tell people that want to transition slowly, with 1 week, just replace your breakfast and make it a vegan breakfast, right? Keep everything else the same. Keep your snack, your lunch, your post-workout smoothie, your dinners, everything stays the same. Replace your breakfast. That way for 1 week, you're eating vegan breakfast. The next week, replace your snack and keep your breakfast vegan, right? Maybe try something new. So now you got your breakfast and your snack that are vegan. The rest is whatever it used to be before. And then the third week, the lunch. Fourth week, the smoothie. Fifth week, your dinner. And then bam, after 5 weeks, you've allowed your gut to adjust to the increase in fiber, to the increase in vitamins and nutrients. Your gut microbiome has time to shift it over. You had time to discover new recipes and try new things. And you got your taste buds used to it too.
Yeah, I really like that. I think the gut thing is probably something people overlook, and they can kind of get put off by it when they've had.
Yeah, it's intense.
Is the key thing to slow transition?
Honestly, for most people, yeah, because if you're eating really healthy and really high amounts of fiber, and you transition to whole food plant-based, like eating higher amounts of protein, but just like whole food plant-based, like you'll be fine because the amount of fiber is very similar. But if you're someone that is like on a Western American diet, like eating that way, and you transition to whole food plant-based in one go, your gut's going to struggle. You're going from 10 grams of fiber to like 50. All right. It's going to be like, what's happening? So you're going to have gut distortion, bloating. You're going to be gassy. Like it's not going to be comfortable. So if you're someone that's not really eating healthy, that wants to make that transition, definitely do it slowly.
Yeah. And what about from a sort of lifestyle, social, travel perspective? Because I think when you're at home, eating plant-based and vegan can be quite easy for the most part. I think where people struggle, and definitely where I had my most challenges at the beginning, was when I'm out and about, because you got to think again, right? You got to start planning in advance a bit more. And as much as the vegan scene's improved, if you're going out with mates who are all non-vegan, trying to convince them all to go to a vegan spot can be difficult. And if you're going to a normal space, sometimes they only have 1 or 2 options on the menu, and it might just be literally a cauliflower steak, So how do you balance that? How do you navigate that element to it? Because I think that can put people off the most, and it's definitely one of the challenges I've faced in this transition period.
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously, all my friends were from the bodybuilding space where we just like ate meat. We would go to shawarma and Subway, and we go to like those steakhouses. That's where we would eat. And so a big thing that started happening is my circle started to shift of who I was hanging out with, right? And so some of those people, I don't know, I'm a big believer you keep the close friends really close, and some of those other people are just people right? And some of the people that I know just kind of started fading away. And some of the people that were really close to me would be like, hey, let's just go to a vegan restaurant for this, because they understand it was really important for me. And sometimes there was a bunch of them that want to go out, and I was the only vegan one. I'd be like, hey, let's just go there. I'll grab whatever's on the menu. Like I'll have a salad. I'll have a like sweet potato fries. Like I'll just make it work with whatever I'm there. I didn't want to be the picky one when I went to those restaurants. So I would just work with whatever was available. Right. But the thing is, my circle slowly started to shift over the years, and eventually I had more vegan friends, and now it's so popular that you can go anywhere and they'll have decent vegan options. But definitely at first, man, I had my fair share of sweet potato bowls of fruits, or salad with like no vinaigrette. That was super boring. Like I've had my fair share of those when I first started. But to me, the relationship with those people was more important than me being fussy about it and let's go eat somewhere else. Right. Because I can just go at home, have some tofu, eat whatever I wanted. But definitely as your circle shift, then it's easier. When I hung out with you when we were in Nashville, like we just went to the vegan restaurant with Fritz and we just eat there. Like there was no big deal about it. Right. We didn't have to like talk about like, where do we want to eat? Like just there's vegan food right there. Let's just go there.
Yeah. And it turned out to be one of the only places to go.
It was the only place.
I think I ended up there about 5-6 times in the space of 3-4 days. I think that's where we first met as well. I think Chani and I were looking for a vegan spot. It was probably the best one near us. We went there, and then you and Fritz were just sitting there like, oh, we saw you at the event, and you guys vegan? Yeah, we're vegan. Must be the only ones there.
So And so like, yeah, in terms of like that transition with social, like I understand that it's hard. The big part is if you're new to veganism and you're with friends that aren't necessarily, they're not vegan or not super supportive, if you say something at that lunch or that dinner, people are going to come after you, right?
Mm.
And so at first I just wouldn't say anything. I was like, I just don't want to, I'm not hungry, I'll just have sweet potatoes, I'll just have a salad. But eventually you kind of build, not in a negative way, but your arsenal of stats and facts as to why you're doing this and to support any argument that someone might say to you. And then you feel might feel a bit more confident having those conversations, like, oh, like, do you have anything that's vegan on the menu? And it's like, oh yeah, we have this and this. And if your friend sells something, it's just a food preference, right? Like, why would people judge you for that?
Yeah. That's interesting because when there's almost a thing around when you say it, oh yeah, I'm vegan or I'm plant-based, there's a, something's going to be us, isn't it? It's like, why?
Yeah. You choose your moments. Like, I don't know, when I first started, I wouldn't say it. And I got more confident. I started saying it, and everyone kind of like gets you with arguments, and eventually get really good at rebuttals. And now people know at this point, because like my whole brand is built around it. But if it's someone that doesn't know, I'll just like, I'm vegan, just I don't want to eat meat. And if they don't know me and they start poking, I just choose my moments to destroy them or not. Like, do I want to have a nice dinner with everyone here? Do I want to like objection handle this guy and one go? So majority of the times, like, hey man, I'm vegan, just eat whatever you want, it's fine, I'm just gonna eat my thing, and let's just leave it there.
One thing I find interesting is that you with your brand, you only work with vegans, if I'm right in saying, which I think is quite a strong position to be in that. It's not like even if you're thinking about vegan, it's no, you got to be vegan. What made you take that stance in that position, and talk us through that journey?
Yeah, of course. So I work with people that are already vegan or that want to go vegan, but the transition happens immediately, right? We don't like
it's option one
to like go. Yeah, exactly. It's like, there's not like we're going to ease you out of fish. There's no animal products in our meal plans that we structure for people. If they're transitioning, we obviously structure nutrition in a way where there's not as much fiber, and we take care of that transition of their gut and their gut health to make sure it's not like intense and uncomfortable. But yeah, that's the only way to work with me. Multiple reasons is, like I said, lost a lot of people to cancer in my life. A lot of the studies show that eating a whole food plant-based diet is one of the number one ways to reduce heart disease, which I lost my grandfather to, some family members to cancer, diabetes. And so if plant-based is the way which I wholeheartedly believe to help heal the body and prevent disease, why would I help anyone doing something else that wouldn't be leading towards that outcome, right? Like my statement mission is I want to help people thrive, get lean, disease-proof their body. And so I'm only going to give food to people that's going to allow them to achieve that outcome. And so that's why I'm super strict about it. I have people jump on calls with us, like, I still want to eat fish. I'm like, well, if there's someone else that's going to help you, it won't be me. Right? If you're ready to let go of fish, then we can have a conversation.
Is that the main reason? Do you have does the ethical and environmental stuff come into it, or is it purely just from a space of, this is what I believe to be the most healthy and fit approach? So that's the way it's going to be.
Number one, health. For me, like, that's what it's going to be. It's the health aspect, and obviously about the animals and the environment, but it's not the main center point of what I do. For me, is I want to help people disease-proof their body, not get sick in the future. So too many people suffer through that. And if you can prevent it through nutrition, then if I have that power of impacting someone's life and reduce their risk or eliminate their risk of getting cancer 20 years on the line, like, that's a massive win. Like, that's why I do it. It's hidden as like, I'll help you lose 20 pounds. But like, what I'm getting is I'm helping you disease-proof your body in the next 20 years so that you don't get cancer, and then your family has to take care of you and your kids lose you too early, right? Like, that's the reasoning behind all of it. It's hidden as fat loss, but great, I'll help you. I'll help you get a six pack, but like, let me help you disease-proof your body.
Of course. Yeah, of course. Where do you think people go make the most mistakes when they first turn vegan?
They don't eat enough.
Protein.
They don't eat enough, or they eat too much. And so what I mean by that is they eat too much because they go to vegan processed food, right? They'll be like, oh, those are great transitional tools, like the Beyond Meat, the Beyond Burger, like whatever packaged vegan product there is. People are like, oh, I like this. This is a vegan version. This is great. But the thing, those are so dense in calories because they are processed, right? And so people tend to overeat, but they don't think that they are because it's vegan and they think it's healthy. So that's one way of overeating. The other way, people are like, no, I'm doing this because I really want to be healthy, so I'm going to go whole food plant-based. if you eat whole food plant-based, it's super high in fiber. You're going to feel satiated and you're going to undereat by 1,000 calories, right? Because you feel full on a lot less. And so there's a massive energy deficit. And then people are like, I'm losing my hair. I don't have any energy. I don't feel good. Well, you're eating like a bird right now. We need to increase your calorie intake a little bit so you have some energy coming in. Yeah,
well,
those are the two biggest ones.
It's interesting. I actually found dieting plant-based to be the easiest way I've ever done it because I just don't feel hungry. And I was in a crazy energy deficit, but I didn't feel hungry at all. And I just think my dinners are still so voluminous. And it was such a nice thing to sit down at night and have a massive plate and know that it was probably like 400 or 500 calories only. Because it's all plant-based. And normally in that same meal would be sort of a bit of chicken, bit of rice, and a bit of veggies on the side, and you're left starving. So that really helped. But what I found coming out on the other side is I have to really be conscious about eating because otherwise I undereat. And there's been since I've been in Bali now for 4 weeks, and if I'm not careful, I can lose weight in a couple of days very quickly because it's very conducive to being plant-based around here. But at the same time, my calorie requirements are probably like 3,000 plus, just to sort of like, I'm also trying to actively gain weight because I got so lean. I need to come out into a normal place again.
Are you reverse dieting?
Yeah. But it's now, okay. Well, I've been on 3-3-2 for now. So since pretty much I met you middle April. But if I have a few days where I might eat a little bit less, I lose weight. And in the last few days, we moved to a new place, and I'm probably sort of, because I'm not weighing anything, right? I'm all sort of just like going by a feel. And again, I've already lost like nearly a kilo. And when you're already very lean and you lose a kilo, it's not a good place to be. And I was like, damn, this morning I was like, damn, I need to eat more again actively because the meals I get are so like this. You feel great afterwards. You're like, I'm fine. And then you're like, oh shit.
Yeah, but I think that the power for you is like you're actually tracking, right? And so if people aren't tracking, like you're kind of intuitive eating right now, like super easy to undereat. And as your calories get higher, like you got to make different decisions. Like I'm not going to have a massive salad. I'm going to have a small salad with avocados and seeds on top of it and tempeh. Like you're trying to bring up the calorie density of the meal. But if you're tracking, it ensures that you're heading in the right direction. But yeah, if you don't, like everyone would pretty much undereat if they're eating whole food plant-based because you feel so full.
And the one I see, the big mistake I see is the mock meat stuff. I think that's where people go, like, especially in the last few years where there's so many more vegan junk food spaces, which potentially weren't there 10 years ago. I think they definitely weren't, right? And I think that's causing like a lot of vegans to gain weight rapidly as well. Because a lot of, especially the uneducated ones.
Yeah. Well, I know I just had 3 consultation calls with people that for the program, and 2 of them were like, well, I thought I went vegan because I wanted to lose weight, but I went vegan, I gained weight. I'm like, what are you eating? And then they're like all the mock meats and the processed food. I was like, well, you're eating 5,000 calories. It's vegan. Like it's still 5,000 calories, right? You still need to be in that deficit. So yeah, definitely the availability of vegan processed food has made it harder for people to actually experience some of those health benefits that everyone like talks about, right? Of like glowing skin, more energy, better digestion, losing weight more easily. Like you lose that because the world has become made it so convenient and available for everyone. Yeah.
What would you say is some of the biggest myths and objections you still hear for people who want to turn vegan?
Yeah, I don't hear them often because usually when people come, they're like ready. They know they have to go vegan. But the main ones is just like fish is the harder one for people to cut. Fish and dairy are the big one. I feel like steak and chicken and all that is not really a hard one for people to let go of. But dairy is one just because cheese and ice cream are the 2 main ones that show up. And then fish, because people like the taste of it. But at the end of the day, like your taste buds change, right? It's not really like a big issue. If you stop eating it, like you're not going to die. And eventually your taste buds will change and you'll be able to appreciate like the foods that nature intended for you to eat. And then you won't miss the fish anymore.
Yeah, interesting. Right? And what's the biggest reasons you hear of people? You said that people come to you ready. What are the reasons that keep coming up for that?
That they're ready to change?
Yeah, why are they ready? Why are they ready to make this change?
Yeah, a mix of both. Usually people have health conditions. We work with a lot of people that have different health conditions. And so they're like, hey, I heard that vegan is really good for that. I need to lower my cholesterol, my blood pressure, or like I had a stroke a year ago and I don't want to be in that position anymore. Or I had a cancer scare and like I want to go plant-based because I heard that it's great to help reduce your risk. So we get a lot of people from that front, but we also get people from the front of like animal cruelty, right? Like I saw a video of like factory farming and I was just like, nope, I'm done. I'm not supporting this anymore. And like, I'm ready to go vegan. I tried it on my own, but just ate shit food and gained weight. And now I'm ready to do it properly.
Yeah. I think that's, the one I hear more is like, the biggest objection I have is like, I'm going to lose my fit. I'm not going to gain results. In my fitness journey. That's the biggest objection I have. And that's probably the reason why I wanted to go extreme, because I was like, but you can go all the way to the extremes of bodybuilding doing this. So if you can do that, you can do anything in fitness.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I think we work with it different. You like people are more like muscle oriented and performance based in your world from what I've seen. Mine are more like fat loss, health. So there's not too much concern in terms of like the muscle aspect of things, right? It's more like the toning versus the building muscle. But yeah, that's definitely a big fear. When I have conversation with people like that, it's definitely like, I don't think I'll get jacked eating vegan. Like, I don't think it's a possibility for me to eat tofu and like build bigger biceps and bigger delts.
And what do you like to say about it?
Oh, 100%. There's so many examples now. You look at Nimai, right? Nimai Delgado from Game Changers. You can look at Chris Moore. You can look at Robert Cheek is one of them. I think Chris Paul is vegan now. He's not super big, but Chris Paul is vegan. Like there's so many vegan athletes now. If there's a book, The Plant-Based Athlete, to Matt Frazier from No Meat Athlete wrote, and then Robert Cheek from veganbodybuilding.com, in there's so many examples of vegan athletes that are performing at a super high level, like NBA, NFL, Olympic, and they're plant-based for several years. And they're still able to crush it.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your big vision for the world when it comes to plant-based veganism? Do you ever think we'll see in our lifetime where the majority of the population will be plant-based? So what do you see?
You know what? I would love to. I would love for the whole world to be plant-based, right? I understand though that within certain geographic location is impossible. Like you live up north where everything's frozen. Like I get it. It's a different scenario, right? But I'd love to see the majority of the population go plant-based. With the way things are happening right now, there's being more vegan food being created in labs than people actually going to stick to like plants, right? Actual plants, right? There's being lab grown meat, like Impossible Burger, Beyond Meat. Like a lot more of those products are being created, which I think is great. It's going to reduce the consumption of like animals, right? So there's not going to be as much animal cruelty, animals dying for people to be able to eat. Long-term side effects of these lab grown meats and some of these fake meats being consumed over the lifespan and like that compounding effect, I have no idea. No one knows because it's brand new. But if you look at whole food plant-based, which has been around for a very long time, there's actual science backing that up, that it's one of the best ways to eat. And so I would love to continue down that road, but the world's always going to love convenience over anything else. And so if that's a convenient aspect, I think that's where the world's going to go. The long-term effects of that, I have no idea. And I'm honestly very curious to see how that's going to turn out.
Yeah, agreed. I think more people will eat more plant-based, but it'll go down that route versus the whole food plant-based. And then, like you said, geographically and economic factors also make a massive difference. I think I read some. I don't know if this is correct, but meat consumption is actually on the rise. But in many, it's which is weird, right? When you think about it. But
I heard that too. Yeah.
But it's because of countries now having it available to them that potentially they didn't have before. Like places like China, places like India. Where for them it's something new and it's something that's now available. So I think that's always going to be a factor as well, and just economics of it, where if you're getting fried chicken at £1 a bucket for your calories, you're going to get that versus £3 pack of tofu.
It is on the rise. The population is also increasing. That's another factor that goes into that also. So if you have more families that are meat eaters that have kids, then that's also going to increase the number. But yeah, both on the rise. Like veganism and meat eating are on the rise, both of them.
Yeah, and obesity is on the rise.
Crazy correlation there.
Well, it's crazy because we almost live in a bubble where we think everyone's into fitness, everyone's being more conscious about the world, but it's actually like obesity is on the rise, and Yeah, it's actually bonkers, right? When you think about it, probably there's more fitness. There's more. The fitness industry's never been bigger, but the obesity crisis has
Mhm.
never been bigger.
Yeah, it's like you said, we're in a bubble. I went to the beach this morning in Malibu, and I was looking around. I was like, yeah, like compared to when I was a kid and I was going to the beach, how people look versus now, like people definitely, more overweight now. And it's crazy because there's so much information available out there that I think it's also causing like confusion as to like, well, should I do keto? Should I do plant-based? Should I do intermittent fasting? Should I do carb cycling? Whatever else is out there that's weird. Like there's a lot of things. But yeah, it's definitely on the rise. You can definitely you see it when you go shopping, you'll see it.
I mean, if you're saying that and you're in Malibu in Los Angeles, which if anywhere, if there's going to be any place that's into fitness,
Yeah.
it's going to be there.
Yeah.
Then you know we've got a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So Maxime, where can people find out more about your amazing work and learn more about how to be fit and vegan?
Yeah, of course, man. I think number one place would just be Instagram. It's just my name, Maxim S_official. I'm sure Akash will have the link somewhere. But yeah, Instagram would be the best place. And I have a podcast also, which I'd love to have you on. It's called the Fit Vegan Podcast. Yeah, we're trying to educate people on obviously plant-based nutrition, but also lifestyle changes that can take place to help people actually thrive, get lean, and disease-proof their body. But yeah, we definitely love to interview on your story of like how you did that cut, because that's a big misconception that people have. Like getting lean as a vegan.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for sharing your story and for giving some great value to the audience.
Of course, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.